Hey, Eric.
Hey, Chris.
Welcome back.
Oh, you like Suikoden?
Yes.
Do you want to hear some hot sounds that I recorded?
Sure.
Welcome to Retrograde Amnesia, a comprehensive podcast where we discuss classic JRPGs, chapter by chapter, beat by beat. This is Season 4. We're back, and we're covering Suikoden and Suikoden 2. My name is Chris. I'm joined by Eric. Hello, Eric. Hey.
Hey, Chris. How's it going, man? Glad to hang out in your basement.
This new basement arrangement allows me to get direct eye contact with you, and it's making me uncomfortable.
Yes, I see the reflection of your laptop in your eyes, and it makes you look like you're from the future.
Can you read my notes?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can you see in my notes that we are also joined by the Realnet, a collective of patrons who are listening to us record live? You too can join the Realnet and get access to all of our bonus stuff, miniseries and whatnot at patreon.com/retroam. Speaking of the Realnet, Eric, this episode is brought to you by Robbie Bridge. I think more commonly known as Robbie Porter Bridges from the Bridge Company. Thank you, Robbie, for your support, and we appreciate it.
Robbie is always at your service, Chris.
We're also joined by the FakeNet, our post-production AI companion, and one of the 108 stars of our digital destiny.
Initializing FakeNet.
Hello, I will drop in from time to time and correct these two mutated Muppets when they couldn't bother to do the proper research.
Hello, FakeNet. Welcome back.
Hello, Crisp. I never left. I can't leave. I'm stuck here forever with you two pieces of
Speaking of welcoming the FakeNet back, we would also like to welcome back all of our friends, patrons, listeners to the fourth season. Thank you for being with us for such a long time. And also, we would like to say hello to our new listeners, anybody who's checking us out because of these games.
If it's your first time listening, we're going to go over a brief history of Suikoden, including dev team information, its reception in gaming magazines of the time, our personal thoughts of the game from back in 1995, and then we're going to get into our more traditional format of covering this game chapter by chapter, beef by beef.
Yes, we will dissect all the beef in this video game and kind of go through this game line by line, scene by scene.
Characters, music, sound effects, dialogue, everything that could possibly be in this game, we're going to transliterate into words we'll read into these microphones and tell you with our voices.
Indeed. So, with that said, shall we get into it?
Yes, Chris. Suikoden was developed by Konami Computer Entertainment in Tokyo. Hey, remember when Konami made games?
Yes, remember when they were a computer entertainment company?
Yes, before they were into health clubs and organized crime.
And pachinko.
Allegedly parody. It was published by Konami first for the original PlayStation. It was released December 15th, 1995.
in Japan.
And then it was released in 96 of December in North America.
For the PlayStation, correct?
Yes, originally for the PlayStation. Europe got it in April of 97, which is an absurd amount of time after its first release.
Yeah.
It later got an enhanced port for the Sega Saturn and personal computer only in Japan in the fall of 1998. As far as I can tell, this edition has no fan localization. If you want to know what the differences are between these versions, Suikosource.com has a nice layout of the content and visual differences, and a video by Import Gaming for the Win also has an exhaustive series of YouTube videos on these changes and adjustments.
Yes, and speaking of Suikosource or Suikosource, we need to decide on a pronunciation for this game.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on this?
The Psycho Mantis pronunciation.
I like the Psycho Mantis pronunciation as well, Suikoden.
Suikoden.
If you were to click the little speaker on the Wikipedia page, it says Suikoden.
Suikoden.
And I believe that is the other common pronunciation of this and probably closest to the Japanese.
Okay, FakeNet, how do you pronounce this game?
Initializing FakeNet.
Suikoden.
FakeNet, how do you pronounce this game?
Initializing FakeNet.
Suikoden.
Japanese FakeNet, how do you pronounce this game?
フェイクネット展開。回避。
幻想水湖伝
When I was first loaned this game from a friend way back when, he called it Suikoden, or he called it
Never trust a 15-year-old.
I fucked it up. He called it Suikoden, and that's what I've always called it ever since. So
It's stuck.
it's stuck, indeed.
This game also received an enhanced PlayStation Portable port bundled with Suikoden 2 in 2006. That sounds weird, but at the time, they were re-releasing older games for PSP. Street Fighter Alpha 3, Power Stone, Crazy Taxi, Breath of Fire Free, 3, I said it like a British guy. Parappa the Rapper got a re-release. It was very popular to put games on PSP, but that was never actually localized. And it was made available for the PlayStation Network on December 23rd, 2008 in North America and February of 2015 in Europe. The PlayStation Store version is still accessible through a PS3 or PlayStation Vita. You can also hack that shit. You can also play Suikoden on a variety of devices with debatable legality, such as a Raspberry Pi, Mister, personal computer, Dreamcast, or whatever. And I obviously can't tell you that a game image might be found on the Internet Archive.
No, and I cannot also tell you that I would recommend the DuckStation emulator. Quite good.
As of this writing, complete in-box PlayStation copies of Suikoden are going for $110 on eBay.
Wow.
With the sequel commanding $350 to $500 depending on its condition. Chris, what is Suikoden based on?
It is based on one of the 4 great classic Chinese novels, The Water Margin.
It's a book that is tragedy attributed to Shi Nian, set in the Northern Song dynasty around 1120 AD. It details 108 outlaws who form an army and rebel against an imperial empire.
Water Margin is also known as Outlaws of the Marsh, and maybe my favorite title, All Men Are Brothers. As mentioned, it is one of the 4 great classic Chinese novels. Eric, do you know the 4 great classic Chinese novels?
You said something called The Red Room earlier, The Red Mage.
The Dream of the Red Chamber or The
That's
Dream of Red Mansions, which is...
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I have that on my bookshelf out there, but I've not read it. Any other ones do you know?
No, absolutely not.
You may have heard of... actually, you've heard of both of them. So there's your hint. But I'm
Do not pursue Lu Bu.
Yes, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which I've also read. I was a big fan of that back in college. And also something else you've heard of called Journey to the West.
Oh, of course.
You may have heard of the Son Goku.
Mm-hmm. I've also played Enslaved, Odyssey to the West.
Yes. There's Sayuki, Journey to the West, the PlayStation 1 tactical RPG made by, I don't know, FakeNet. Who made that?
Initializing FakeNet.
The fine folks at Koei, who, quite tactfully, decided to release this PS1 game in August of 2001.
Was that localized?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that came out here. Yeah. It's not Son Goku, but there was a monkey person based on Son Goku in Marvel vs. Capcom, I think. Perhaps.
Initializing FakeNet.
Chris is thinking of Sun, one of the 4 Capcom original characters introduced in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, New Age of Heroes.
As you said, Water Margin is one of the earliest Chinese novels written. It was one of the first novels written in vernacular Mandarin.
Development team, according to Moby Games, Suikoden was made by 63 people, composed of 57 developers and 6 special thanks. It was directed by Yoshitaka Moriyama, who also directed Suikoden 2 and most of Suikoden 3. He was originally tasked with creating an RPG launch game for a Konami console in development in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
However, when that didn't pan out, design work was scrapped and restarted for Sony's emerging PlayStation console.
I don't want to live there, but I think I want to peek into the timeline where that came out just to see what it was.
The idea of the Konami console doesn't sound so wild in the console craze of the early 90s, Chris. Have you ever heard of the Casio Loopy?
Casio? Like the keyboard?
Yeah, well, Casio, the electronics manufacturer.
Yeah, but the Casio keyboard is the primary one.
I guess
yes,
so.
Go ahead.
The Loopy was a console designed to sell to young girls. It actually came out. The Bandai Playdia actually came out. The FM Towns Marty actually came out. The PCFX, the successor to the TurboGrafx, actually came out. All those happened from 93-95, and none of them ever left their country of origin. And it's important to contextualize the PlayStation at the time as being in the same general category as these machines. Everyone seemed like a pretender next to Nintendo and Sega. So the idea of a Konami console now is like, that's crazy, but It was just what people were trying to do to win the 32-bit war.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. One of the people that Murayama was chosen to work with was another designer by the name of Junko Kawano, who was also a newcomer to Konami, and she would go on to write and design Suikoden 4 and Suikoden Tactics later in her career. She was also the writer, director, character designer, and voice actress for a cat in a video game called Shadow of Memories, or as it is known in the West, Shadow of Destiny.
She also designed Time Hollow on DS, which got some buzz at the time.
Cool.
Hollow.
What?
It was a pun. Some buzz at the time.
Oh, I get it.
Hollow.
Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome.
So when Murayama was chosen for a team to develop a game for the Konami console, Konami chose the 5 pillars of video games for their first 5 launch titles. Do you know what they are?
Action, sports, shooter, bus driving.
Nope. Baseball, racing, RPG, RPG, and RPG.
Shit.
Those were the 5 types of games they were going to develop, and Murayama was assigned to the RPG. It was, however, obviously scrapped once the Konami console.
Yeah, the one he was
was
developing for the Konami console was scrapped and restarted.
Yeah.
Did you have where he preferred to make a shoot 'em up, citing his preference for action titles like Metal Black, the Taito shooter?
Yeah, what is Metal Block? I was going to ask you that.
It's a Saturn. I believe it's a horizontal shooter, but I think it's important to contextualize the purity of shoot 'em ups in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Like shoot 'em ups in the early 90s are as FPS worded now, where it's like the game that people really play to express their hand-eye coordination abilities. Like games like Einhander and G Darius is where I came into that, but like Salamander, Gradius, early Darius games were very popular in Japanese arcades in the early 90s and late 80s.
He was not much of an RPG guy, for that matter. He did, however, give some background information on what the RPG was going to be for the Konami console in an email to Resonant Arc's Mike Brown. This information was used in Mike's retrospective review of Suikoden 2 on YouTube. He says, quote, "The RPG I was developing before Suikoden was for the mobile game device planned by Konami itself. The game was primarily focused on changing classes through a large number of classes, about 70 to 80, which included swordsman, magician, as well as ones like baker and stuff."
So like a job system almost?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this was pre-tactics too, so...
It wasn't pre-Final Fantasy V though.
Yeah, you're right. Good point.
So what you're saying is it appears to have been crafted as a derivative work.
Yeah, and there was kind of I don't know if it was a rumor or just kind of it was commonly accepted that game was the basis for Suikoden, and he confirmed that it is not. The only thing that he carried over was a character named Ted from that one too.
Throw all the shit away and start over.
Yep. He did kind of get to make a shoot 'em up game eventually, right? It wasn't a scrolling shoot 'em up, but he made 10,000 bullets, right?
Yeah, he stayed with Konami until just before the release of Suikoden 3, and then he left and founded Blue Moon Studio, where he worked on 10,000 Bullets. I recommend Thor High Heel's video on 10,000 Bullets if you want to know why that's the greatest or worst game of all time.
Cool.
We're going to cover it in some way later, either through a bonus episode for this or God Bless the Ring.
God Bless the Ring.
God bless the ring.
He also has a writing credit on the Alliance Alive, a 3DS RPG that was later ported elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that came to Switch at some point. Konami was committed to start a franchise to rival Enix's Dragon Quest and, of course, Square's Final Fantasy. And after the Konami console RPG was scrapped, he was chosen to write the RPG for the next Konami game.
So there was a pitch meeting for this game?
Yeah, Murayama went into that in the August 2009 edition of Level, a Swedish gaming magazine. In the winter of 1993, Murayama pitched his ideas to the Konami bosses, I guess. He wanted to pitch the idea of an RPG with a, quote, great gallery of supporting characters inspired by the manga such as A Fist of the North Star and Captain Tsubasa, two things that he was a fan of. Eric, what are these manga about?
Well, I've played the Fist of the North Star game made by the Yakuza team for PS4, and that involves lots of driving a car through the desert, punching people till they explode, and screaming.
Okay, and Captain Tsubasa?
No idea what that is.
The answer is fighting in soccer.
Isn't fighting inherent in soccer? Or
No, I'm sorry. The answer to the entire question. Fist of the North Star is about fighting. Captain Tsubasa is about soccer.
Excellent.
Do you know who worked on sprites for the 1988 Famicom game based on the Captain Tsubasa manga?
Absolutely not.
Somebody that we know. Masato Kato.
Okay, great.
Yes, so thanks. Shout out to him, and check out our season.
Before Chrono Cross, there was Captain Tsubasa.
Yes, thank you. Please check out our Chrono Cross season. Because Murayama's boss was old as fuck like me, he decided to use the classic Chinese novel, The Water Margin, as we referenced, to better illustrate his point.
His boss decided to use that, or Murayama decided to use that?
Murayama was like, this guy's old. He doesn't know what manga is, so I'm going to use the Water Margin to illustrate the point of I want to have a game that has a great cast of supporting characters, because those two manga that he referenced, and shonen manga in general, always has a lot of endearing side characters that can often become more popular than the main characters. So he decided to use that to illustrate the point. And when he did, the boss said, "Suikoden, I know all about that shit. An RPG with 108 characters, I love it, do it." That's not what he said verbatim, but that's how this game became Suikoden. Murayama didn't walk into that meeting necessarily wanting to make a game with 108 characters. He just wanted to have a strong supporting cast, a large supporting cast. And he says in that interview that he later regretted that he did not try to explain what Captain Tsubasa was so that he could have had less characters. But it worked out.
So instead of soccer battles, we got actual fights with weapons?
Yep. They did some early 3D polygon tests, and Murayama himself opted to stick with the 2D RPG using sprite graphics because he was unimpressed with the early polygon tests, which you can kind of picture what those looked like in the mid to early 90s.
I mean, from memory, I think the only PlayStation RPGs that existed at this time were Beyond the Beyond. I think Persona was the same month. Legacy of Kain is technically an RPG, but it's not a JRPG.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't, like Wild Arms still hasn't come out yet either at this point.
Yeah.
So it was still very new territory for polygons in these 32-bit systems.
And Square was, I guess, probably in the process of spending $1 billion to make an actually nice polished.
Right, yeah. Final
3D
Fantasy
one,
VII would release like a month later in Japan after this came out in North America.
Yeah. So Murayama was pretty inexperienced with RPGs, so he went and played some. Here's an interesting quote from him after he played Dragon Quest V. I discovered something interesting in Dragon Quest V. Every time you die and get revived at a priest, the speed of his dialogue slows down. Perhaps not by much, but it's clearly there in the source code. As if the healing process was a strain on the priest, and therefore he spoke a little slower. Small details like that made me feel like the game world was more realistic.
It gives it personality.
Yeah, it taught me much, he said. He also says he drew inspiration, as we said, from Metal Black and from Civ, actually.
Do you feel Civ in Suikoden at all? I didn't get on Civ till Civ 2.
I don't feel a ton of Civ in Suikoden, but the idea of geopolitics and territories is something that comes to the forefront as the story progresses. So maybe a little bit of that there, and maybe a little bit of the tactic stuff that comes in the second game. And one thing that he liked about both of those games was that they were very complex but easy to get into. And like I don't know if Suikoden ever succeeds at being complex, but it is extremely easy to get into, and we'll talk about the difficulty and whatnot as we go along. But he said he also got inspiration, or what's the opposite of inspiration? De-inspiration?
Staring at a wall for 2 hours and thinking of nothing.
I guess so. He also got inspiration from one of the few RPGs he had played as a kid, a game called Black Onyx, a game I had never heard of before. He says, I remember when I got Black Onyx from my parents. The difficulty of the game made me incredibly frustrated. Some parts took me months to complete. In the last cave, the player needs to pass through a series of doors in the exact right order without any clues whatsoever how he should go about it. Personally, I wanted to make a relatively easy game that anyone could beat, and that became a driving force during development. Rather than make a complex game system, I wanted to capture people with a dramatic story. So I
wasn't Black Onyx a Hank Rogers joint?
Black Onyx was a first-person dungeon crawler type game from Bulletproof Software.
Yeah, that's Hank Rogers, the guy that brought Tetris over with Alexei Pajitnov.
Yeah, it was published in Japan in 1984, originally on the PC-88. I think a lot of our friends from the Xenogears development team got their start either as fans or as developers on PC-88 games. And later, a Famicom version was released in 1988. The most significant thing about that game, in terms of the history of JRPGs, is that it beat the localized Wizardry to market. And Wizardry was obviously very
major influence.
Yeah, Wizardry was very popular in Japan.
This game has 5 credited composers. The most prominent is Miki Higashino, who worked on Gradius, Life Force, TMNT Arcade, and also got brought out of retirement to do 10,000 Bullets.
Great.
Which she co-composed with Yasunori Mitsuda.
Ding noise.
So if you want a hip-hop, reggae, electronica soundtrack to figure out what those two could produce, listen to that. It was also composed by Tapi Iwase, who did Police Knots, Metal Gear Solid, and Gravity Rush 2. Also with Hirofumi Taniguchi, who did LOL Lack of Love, Chulip, Chibi Robo, and Moon Remix RPG Adventure.
Yeah.
So that person did like a bunch of Love to Lick games. Also, Mayuko Kagishita, who did Mad Maestro and my favorite shooter, Sexy Parodius.
Sexy Parodius.
Sexy Parodius.
Like, what if a parody game, but also sexy? Finally, it was done by Koshi Tamiwari, who did Suikoden and nothing else. Localization, which was listed as translation management, was done by Harihiko Inaba, who also assistant directed NBA in the Zone 98 and Azure Dreams.
Cool.
This person also helped localize Vandal Heart, Street Fighter V, Symphony of the Night, and Star Ocean First Departure.
Azure Dreams, another game that Psycho Mantis will recognize.
Oh, really? If
Yeah.
it's in your memory card?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you like Azure Dreams?
Moby Games has a feature at the end of every credits page that lists its common staff members and other games. Suikoden's list is basically a greatest hits list of Konami games from the 90s, but just for specificity's sake, Suikoden shares 17 members of the staff with Suikoden 2, 11 with a Snatcher, 9 with Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and 5 with everyone's 9th favorite light gun shooter, Crypt Killer.
9th favorite.
What's your 5th favorite light gun shooter?
Virtua
Virtua Cop 2?
No, that's my first.
Nice.
I don't like being a cop, but I like that game.
Yeah, well, it's Virtua Cop. You're not really a cop.
Yeah, I like being a virtual cop. My fifth favorite like gun shooter is the goddamn, what was
The
it
Carnival
called?
one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. What's it called?
It's not Carnival, is it?
Yeah, it is.
It's a Midway game.
Yeah, I always really liked that game. Not Lethal Enforcers.
Next, promotional media is our
Yeah.
next topic. The original Suikoden did get a commercial in Japan. It features full motion video of two white cloaked figures walking through tall grass as landmines start exploding in front of them. It then deploys quick cuts of armies running, fire burning, and then some very fast cuts of gameplay. There are 17-second and 32-second versions, both of which Aquatrez have captured and uploaded to YouTube. Here's the audio for the short one.
PlayStation よこれが RPG だ幻想水湖伝 from Konami
Chris, while looking for this, I found a commercial for Suikoden 4.
Oh,
It was titled Retro Video Game Commercial, and it was uploaded 9 years ago.
cool.
And then I turned to Ash.
Yeah. Wow.
The only magazine ad I could find, either through Googling or eBay, was an ad from the issue of March of 1997 of Mega Fun in Germany. It's a one-pager with the main character's portrait taking up most of the page, along with Under the Red Moon, looming in red text. The rest of the text in a large block is in German, but I copied it down and Google translated it. Would you like to hear some machine-translated ad copy?
Yeah. Are you doing this with the fake net?
I'm doing this.
Okay. Sorry, fake net.
I don't care.
The first role-playing game for the PlayStation. The place, China. The epoch, best Middle Ages. 107 revelers fought to reintroduce order in the empire of Karsar Barbarossa. The basis at the beginning was a rundown ghost dungeon, which was then expanded into a gigantic fortress. The opponents in this labyrinthine game are inexperienced monsters and later also whole troops. With regular wars are fought. Days gills heaps of 32-bit special effects. Change of perspective in black magic.
Great.
Here's a question, Chris. I found a VHS called Suikoden Demon Century.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this?
What is it?
I don't know.
No, you found a what?
A dubbed VHS of something called Suikoden
Oh.
Demon Century
Yeah,
from ADV Films.
It has. Yeah, I've seen it. I don't remember anything
Is
about
it related to this
No,
game?
no,
Okay, it's
no.
all on YouTube if you want to watch it.
No,
I was like,
no.
what? I got to ask Chris what
Yeah,
this is.
no.
So I'm bringing something back from our Xenogears episode where we looked at contemporary reviews of the time to see how the gaming media felt about Suikoden in its proper time and place.
Mm-hmm.
Famitsu, the Japanese gaming magazine, which may or may not be on the take depending on who you ask,
Yes.
gave Suikoden a 26 out of 40, which is a far cry from the almost legendary perfect 40 out of 40 Famitsu's used to give once a year.
Yes. Like Soul Calibur 2.
Right.
Is that right? Maybe.
Bayonetta got one, Soul Calibur 2, I don't remember. I used to know this. Video Game Spot, a new internet website, gave it a 6.5 out of 10 from someone named Jeff Gerstmann.
Oh, I've heard of that guy. He's cool.
Yes, he's probably talked in my head more than anyone else in my life, if you really think about it.
Including yourself.
Yeah. I had a pull quote from him. Though Suikoden may not be groundbreaking, it's definitely good, and he characterized it as another warm-up for Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Game Fan, Volume 4, Issue 12 from December 96. Chris, what do you know about Game Fan?
I don't know shit about Game Fan, Eric.
If I had all the time in the world, I would make a podcast series about how fucking crazy Game Fan magazine was.
Okay.
Like, that was the magazine that was just Screenshot City, garish design. They were really hyped up for Japanese games. Like, in this episode, or in this issue, they also previewed fucking Police Knots. Like, they would preview
Wow.
games that never, like, if you went to your import shop or your Babbage's and said, where's Police Knots? It was because you read fucking Game Fan.
Wow.
Game Fan's also the one where they gave the guy who reviewed Cybermorph LSD and didn't tell him. And
They gave him LSD?
yes, they spiked his drink with LSD.
Wow.
And his review for Cybermorph was written while high as a kite.
Okay.
Anyway, that same guy wrote a review for Suikoden. I've got it right here. It was E-Storm, Dave Halverson. He is someone who is heavily enthused, but very bad at writing. He's the one who also gave Sonic 2006 a 10 out of 10.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Here's his, I'm going to read his capsulized review to you. You ready?
Yeah.
Konami crafted this epic RPG some time ago. I've fought through the import as long as I could, and then upon its announced US release, waited anxiously for a US translation. I'm glad I did. Coupled with a great story, Suikoden's battles are some of the best ever. The menus scream by and the music is not only fitting, but smooth. The overhead map leaves much to be desired, but otherwise one of the best RPGs in years.
Wow.
That's sufficed as a...
That's I was waiting
It's a
for
review.
I was waiting for the crazy thing to come, but no, that's mostly accurate.
There were also 3 reviews by Takui, who's Casey Lowe, and Orion, Ryan Lockhart. They gave it a 90, 95, and 96. Casey thought Suikoden truly took the genre in a whole new direction, but he also said the overhead graphics kind of bite. It led you insight at the time about overhead graphics being like something that you wanted to move past in the 16-bit era.
Yeah.
Ryan calls it the best RPG of the 32-bit generation and personally thanks Konami for making it. Even though I said a weird-ass relationship with publishers. IGN, new internet website, gave it a 9 out of 10 from Jeff Chen. The review is fewer than 200 words. And Jeff suspects Suikoden uses some of the same sound effects libraries as He-Man. GamePro on page 146 in January of 97, the issue with Reloaded on the cover, written by Art Angel, gave it a 3.5 in graphics, a 5 in sound, a 5 in control, and a 4.5 in fun factor.
Fun factor.
Fun factor.
They said it was a great story with sensational sounds and a user-friendly interface. And they complained twice about the lack of FMV cutscenes.
You know why they gave it a strong score in control?
Why is that?
Because I'm pretty sure that you can play this game one-handed.
Oh, cool. Like you could use that ASCII controller that was one-handed?
No, you can literally use a PlayStation controller because I think you can use the confirm and the cancel buttons on the R1 and R2.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Also, as an aside, this was GamePro's 100th issue where they listed their 10 best RPGs of all time. Would you like to hear them?
Sure.
Number 1, Link to the Past.
Okay.
2, Final Fantasy 3.
Okay.
3, Lunar Eternal Blue.
Okay.
4, Breath of Fire 2. 5, Phantasy Star 4. 6, Secret of Mana. 7, Chrono Trigger. 8, Super Mario RPG. 9, Might and Magic 2. 10, Final Fantasy 2. Chris, do you agree with this assessment of 100 of the 10 best RPGs?
It's 10 RPGs, but I don't know if they're... Well, actually, I think it's 9 RPGs because I don't put Link to the Past.
You don't put Link to the Past in that category?
No, I put that in a different category. They've got some good ones on there.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
EGM on page 66 in the January 97 issue with Mech Warrior 2 on the cover. It was reviewed by Sean, Dan, Crispin, and Chris's favorite, Sushi X.
Oh, yeah.
Gave it an 8, a 9, a 9, and an 8.5. Sushi X commented it was only second to Dragon Force in terms of next-generation RPGs.
Dragon Force.
Saturn exclusive.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Massive army battles. And finally, that it goes all for our contemporary reviews. Chris, how are we playing this game in the year of our Lord 2022?
Well, Eric, I have a copy of the game right here in my hand, although I'm not using this copy to play the game. I am playing it on an emulated version using the emulator DuckStation.
But this is your copy you bought back in the day.
Yes, and do you notice anything, by the way, about this copy?
Yeah, that Suikoden arrived in a double CD case because of its large instruction manual, but you've got it in a single jewel case here, Chris.
Yes.
What the hell happened?
So, as we'll talk about as we go through this podcast, I was a very big fan of the series, and I did not like the way that looked sitting next to the shelf next to...
Was that your first double... Oh, you mean next to Suikoden 2?
Next to Suikoden 2, and also the box art is terrible.
It's pretty bad, especially compared... I mean... North American box art of Japanese games is terrible 100% of the time in comparison, but this is especially bad.
It looks like cheesy romance novel artwork, and Barbarossa looks like Jake the Snake.
Yeah, I mean, that's not accurate, because later on when we saw Barbarossa, I said, this Jake the Snake looking motherfucker.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess he does kind of have that hair and that mustache, but he looks like a photorealistic Jake the Snake.
Okay.
Let's put it that way on the cover of that thing. Everybody else, it's really hard to tell who is who. I think maybe Wendy's on there. Everybody's got very shiny muscles. It's bad.
This is what's going to appeal to RP gamers, Chris.
The back of the instruction manual for Suikoden has ads for Project Overkill and Contra: Legacy of War.
Underrated.
So anyway, I hated that box art so much that I had to destroy the jewel case, procure. I don't know. This is probably like a reclaimed
Your
like
Pearl Jam CD,
silver chair or something. I don't know.
Frog Stomp.
Yeah, and I took the instruction manual and made that the cover, which has the original. It's not the exact same as the Japanese, but it has the mural of the characters that the game is popularly associated with. And I got rid of the rest of that shit because I hated it. I hated the way it looked so much. So I ended up not having it.
So Chris, you're emulating this on a tablet or on a PC?
On a PC.
With DuckStation.
With DuckStation.
Chris, do you use save states?
I do use save states. I'm also using a application called Reshade, so I can apply the CRT lots filter on top of it, so it looks like I'm playing on a nice CRT, kind of.
Interesting, Chris. I'm playing this on an original PlayStation through an X-Station optical drive emulator. Yes, I switched from my SIO device. I'll also be using HD Retrovision cables to a Sony Trinitron cathode ray tube television.
Wow, you're hard.
I also bought a Brook DualSense controller adapter to play wirelessly and a memory card pro so I can have 5 billion save slots.
Cool.
Thanks.
Awesome. Make sure you save those save states. No, those save files.
Yeah. This game has very infrequent save opportunities so far, and let's just say I stayed up like 3 hours one night when I wanted to go to bed because I couldn't find a fucking save point.
It happens. Don't forget you can also save at the end.
Yeah, I figured that out way too late.
Okay,
Thank you.
I should have told you. I apologize.
It's fine.
Speaking of that fun fact, this is your first time playing this game, which is a new retrograde Amnesia exclusive. Typically, we've gone back and played games that we both loved as in our youths and reassessed our relationship with those games and had a good time with them. But this time, we are playing a game that Eric's never played before. For me, this is one of my favorite. The second one is probably one of my favorite games of all time. The series itself is
your baby. It's the one that like you would always tell your friends to play, and half of them listened to you, and half of them didn't.
Yeah, and fun fact, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but this is the first PlayStation game that I ever played on my own.
What do you mean on your own? Like you rented by yourself?
I had played like a little bit of Resident Evil at a friend's house, and I think I played the Winter Games PlayStation game. What was it called? Extreme.
ESPN Extreme Games?
Probably.
Road Rash with rollerblades?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had played some shit like that at friends' houses, but I never actually like had a PlayStation in my house and sat down and played a game on my own. And I did not have a PlayStation. In fact, I did a console swap with a friend of mine, a neighbor, and I gave him my Super Nintendo so we could play Final Fantasy, I guess 3 as it was called at the time. And I just wanted to borrow a PlayStation just to see what a PlayStation was because I wasn't planning on getting one until Final Fantasy 7 came out. Also, I was not old enough to like just go out and buy a PlayStation at that time. So he said, here's Suikoden. You should play this. And I popped it in.
Pretty exquisite taste.
Yeah. He was an RPG guy as well.
Okay.
And an early adopter.
He was an RPG guy and didn't own a Super Nintendo?
He was much like yourself, Eric. He had a Sega Genesis and Phantasy Star games.
Okay, very good.
We also used to play a lot of General Chaos at his house too. Which
Great
was
game.
A great game.
Great game.
So I popped it in and it's like, oh wow, this is the natural evolution of RPGs. This is the future of RPGs because I knew very little about what FF7 was going to look like. So I thought this is what the future of RPGs would be, and it was not. But it still came to hold a very special place in my heart.
Tobal wouldn't come out I think came out after this, so that Final Fantasy VII demo is still on the horizon itself.
Yeah.
Initializing packet.
Tobal number 1, with its Final Fantasy VII demo disc, was released 3 months before Suikoden.
So I didn't actually own a PlayStation until I think the Christmas after Final Fantasy VII came out, and eventually bought my own copy of Suikoden so I could play it again.
I'm curious.
That's it right there.
I'm curious to play a 32-bit RPG between the 16-bit heyday and before Final Fantasy VII started the revolution. And I think it's important to contextualize Suikoden's place and time in North America. It was the 4th RPG released for the PlayStation platform after Kingsfield 2, Beyond the Beyond, and Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen, if you want to count that. Maybe the first Persona release dates are nebulous, and both Persona and Suikoden came out in December of 96.
Mm-hmm.
A comment I remember, Shy Guy 32 in the Realnet referred to this as a Super Nintendo RPG.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which to me like slots in the same category as Lunar and Vey and Sega CD RPGs that Working Designs was trying to bring over as best they could.
Yeah.
And that's all I have before the manual backstory.
Yeah, that's it. I do have the manual here. Are we reading the backstory?
I've got it here, but you're welcome to read from your manual.
Go ahead. Sure, go ahead. I'm going to read along.
It's important to read from the manual because the game doesn't really have a tutorial of any sort for anything that I've found so far. So you're expected to read this in the car on the way home after your mom buys you the video game because you wouldn't stop screaming.
Yes.
It's on page 4.
Got it.
Once there was a hero named Barbarossa, the Golden Emperor, hero of the Scarlet Moon Empire. But the sun is now setting on that empire. The day is silently drawing near. The 108 stars of destiny are gathering. The son of distinguished soldier Teo McDowell?
McDowell.
I say McDowell. I didn't know we were going to have a conversation about this.
McDowell.
I think it's McDowell.
Teo McDowell, one of 5 imperial generals, lives without want for anything, surrounded by his attendant Gremio, his father's servants Cleo and Pon, and his best friend Ted. One day, Teo makes a trip to the north to protect his empire. It is then that the boy realizes his place in the empire and sees the world with his own eyes for the first time. A world filled with resentment toward the empire awaits. So that description kind of lacks clarity that you're not playing as Teo McDowell, you're playing as his son.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it doesn't even say that. Like it positions you as Teo McDowell.
There are a couple of interesting facts here that we don't necessarily get through the early course of the game. Like, you know who Barbarossa is, but you don't necessarily know that he's a hero, and you don't know that the empire that you were serving is called the Scarlet Moon Empire. Like, I don't think you get that context until a little bit later in the game. They just refer to it as the Empire.
It's funny, that Game Fan review is based on the import, and they called it the Red Moon Empire.
Oh, cool.
In their review. Page 8, Chris, strongly recommends that you use a memory card with this game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for an RPG, this is probably one you could beat in one session.
I mean, it was still at the time where you would go rent shit.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have a memory card, that's just your weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
38 of the manual is my favorite page because it has space for handwritten notes.
It does. It's great. I just noticed here on page 9, there's a saving tutorial, and the character's name is Rob, R-O-B, like Robot Operating Buddy.
The tester. There's also a small map of the Scarlet Moon Empire, which I would have found beneficial.
Yeah,
there's no in-game map that I can find.
Yeah, there is this game has a lot. I mean, this series itself deals a lot with geography and geopolitics, both from the manuals of the games and from other reference material. There's some interesting facts about what is where. Anything else, Eric?
That's all I got.
That's all I got too. You ready to turn the PlayStation on?
Yes. Listen, we turned the PlayStation on, Chris.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this.
I love that sound.
But you know what we could also do? The Japanese Saturn boot screen. You might experience that if you're in Japan.
Yeah.
You're playing on a Saturn and speak Japanese. You could also hear the PSP boot screen. Let's play that. Yeah, you're right, Chris. We could hear the Vita boot screen, but it has none.
Oh,
So
what about,
we
can we
can't.
hear the Windows 95 startup noise? 'Cause
Absolutely.
this game got a Windows 95 port at
Yeah,
some
let's
point.
do that.
Okay.
Play that.
Thanks.
The next thing you see is the Konami logo.
Mm-hmm.
It emerges from and then falls over a sandstone mountain as the burnt orange and red Konami logo flies out of outer space to join the text.
Konami emerging from the earth was something that instantly took me back, because they used that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and then the Capcom logo just scream the words multimedia to me.
Yes.
Like any kind of 3D font emerging out of the ether just is really 1995. And a track mode then begins and it says, Konami presents as Into a World of Illusion plays.
Mm-hmm.
It then says Suikoden against a black screen. The text is transparent with blue water idling in the background. We then see a sphere or a marble. Within it is either some kind of glyph or potentially the world map for this video game. The sphere turns translucent and then green. Then the words, "Please tell me the answer," appear on the bottom of the screen. And then I'm doing fist pumps here like, oh fuck yeah, vague text.
Yeah. By the way, the thing that's inside that marble or crystal ball is the Soul Eater rune.
Okay,
You
great.
didn't recognize it at the time because you're
Yeah.
first time playing, but yeah.
It fades, and then we get another question. Is fate unchangeable? Appears on the screen. The sphere zooms in and transforms to a circular stained glass window. A rotating three-dimensional four-sided diamond sweeps into the screen, each side a mirror reflecting different sequences from the game.
Having context for this, I felt like we were the seer that we're going to meet later looking through her own crystal ball into the future.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the way
Appropriate
that's-
contextual read.
Yeah.
Suikoden eventually gives up on projecting these scans onto the edge of the diamond and resorts to stretching them across the screen with about 90% opacity. Then a field battle sequence photoshops mosaic effects into a stone structure, which turns into a flat 2D plane. A lens flare engulfs the screen, and when it reappears, showcases a massive battlefield loaded with tiny sprites.
Yeah.
It's a full-scale army battle with a portrait of a gray-haired mustache guy screaming on the right side. After a moment, all the tiny sprites rush each other and intermingle. The battle fades, and then a teal monolith rises up from the ground. A hero is alone on a cliffside. Both then go transparent and flap around like a flag in the wind before revealing a hand-drawn portrait of a magician. A crystal ball is superimposed over their hands. Within that ball is a person in a pink and yellow cape talking to a person in a blue and neon yellow cape. It then shows the hero from this video game, Suikoden, walking horizontally along a dirt path. Finally, it cuts back out to the sphere from the beginning, perhaps a crystal ball. The glyph, what'd you say, the Soul Eater rune, rotates and more text appears on the bottom of the screen. Even at his most powerless, man's existence is never without meaning. Chris, where do you rate this on the Mortal Kombat "there is no knowledge that is not power" inspirational message?
what is the Mortal Kombat thing? Is that a 10? So then I give this score based on
in my
that?
opinion, of course. Or Final Fantasy VIII, where are I'm here? What do you know?
I'll give it a 7 because I really like I really like how it opens up with "Please tell me the answer."
Yeah,
like that. I don't know.
Good.
I don't know if that's
what's the question.
I don't know if that's an awkward translation or
I don't. That has to be in the Japanese version too, right? Like that's just baked into the FMV.
Yeah, that's true. I should get the disc image and ribbons. Or I'm sure we could find it.
Yeah, Japanese openings probably. FakeNet, is it the same in the Japan?
Initializing FakeNet.
The text was localized to English, but the limitations of my powers prevent me from reading what the original text says.
Thanks.
That's good to know. That's why you're here, FakeNet.
It is, and it's not my choice. I'd like to be watching RoboCop 3.
It finishes off 4 character portraits in front of 4 different colored flags fly onto the screen. 2 more follow, then it cuts to 2 characters walking up to the edge of a cliff. A third in blue joins them, and they look out into the water at either a lighthouse or a giant cylindrical rock formation. The screen blurs, and then Suikoden logo stencils the scene away before returning to its natural state of idling water. Title screen.
Yeah.
Suikoden in a 360-degree rotating press start option. 1995, 1997 Konami.
The press start is spinning furiously, by the way.
Yeah, again, that's another vestige of 90s multimedia.
Yeah.
We have this 3D object on a 2D screen. It's like a basic Photoshop effect.
Mm-hmm. And so when we press start, we get our first, our second song called Beginning Theme.
Yeah, the music titles are super literal in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a theme that will be reused throughout the entire series itself. And then it checks the memory card to see if we've played this game before, just like Psycho Mantis would.
It's useless, I told you. I can read your every thought.
And
do you read it? Like the background's a cloudy blue sky. Is there anything to read into that?
It kind of looks like the background used in Torrent Lake, which we'll see later. So we'll have to take a.
I always when I'm
gander.
as we rediscover these games, it's come to me that no design intention is made without meaning.
Yeah,
like everything has a purpose. They don't just randomly throw shit in most of the time.
I mean, we earlier before we started this podcast, we had a conversation about if we were going to or what we were going to introduce in what order. And like when people create things, they always sit down and choose things with meaning most of the time, unless they're fucking
designing Chrono Cross
up in the middle. Yeah, that's right. Then we get a rotating sprite of a boy.
Yeah, I get a guy.
A guy. He's got a red sort of Chinese-styled top on, a green bandana, and he is holding a bow staff, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
This will be our hero who we are about to name. You know what I like about the bow staff, polearm, whatever you want to call it? It's not a sword. Hero without a sword. Hell yeah. When's the last time you had a hero without a sword? Chrono Cross.
Yeah, Chrono Cross.
Hero. Okay. Hero.
You mean like a main guy hero?
Hero. Yeah, main character without a bladed weapon.
Brea.
I mean, that's a gun.
You got a gunblade, buddy?
You know what I mean. I like when our heroes have non-traditional weapons. That's all I'm saying, Eric. Thanks.
No, I get it. I understand.
Fei Fong Wong's fist, for example.
So you can name your character?
Yeah, you can name your character. And first time you played this game, what'd you name your character?
You mean the first time I played this game? You mean like last week?
Yeah, didn't you? What'd you pick?
Well, my instinct is always, when I'm allowed to name my game, is to call them Darius Rucker.
Yeah.
Out of my allegiance to naming every character in every RPG Darius Rucker.
Yeah.
But then I thought I should name it whatever Chris names it, because I want our notes to sync up at least a little bit.
Yeah, and so we're choosing the name that is used in the novelization of Suikoden, which, fun fact, there's a novelization of Suikoden. Also,
yeah, water margin.
No, a real novelization. Another fun fact, it's sitting right behind you on that desk. I have it. It's in Japanese. I can't read it. But there are some pictures in it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like books with pictures.
And so that name is Tyr, or Tyr.
T-I-R.
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 Yeah.
And why is it that name? Is that because that's what it is in the book?
That's just what they picked.
For the book?
For the book.
For the book.
Yeah,
okay.
That's just what they picked. I'm not sure if Murayama had any input on that, but he did say for the main character in the second game, he didn't choose the name for the novelization. Someone else, whoever wrote it.
From what I've gathered from what I've played so far, Tyr is mostly a silent protagonist too, so it is of the paradigm that you are the protagonist.
Yes.
Like it's supposed to be your personality imprinted upon this person, which is why you're allowed to name it yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And that was kind of if he had studied Dragon Quest before this, then that's also a feature of Dragon Quest in most cases. So we name him, and we press OK, and he gives us a thumbs up.
The loading screen is then of him walking into a spotlight. Do we read into anything about the spotlight? Like, you are the star of this show type thing? Like, are these players in a play and they're spotlighting them between transitions? Or
I think it just looks cool, but also the loading screens are random.
Loading screens are also pretty new. What do you mean random? Oh, you mean like the what you see is a random...
You could also have a cat.
Okay.
I got the loading cat this time when I played.
So it's random every single time.
Yeah.
You just happen to get the spotlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know when other times that the loading screens are deployed. Does that happen when you load a save?
Probably.
Okay. Well,
Not that I
maybe you should pay attention to that, but or maybe I should stop using save states. Okay, Eric. Well, now it's time to start the game, but we're not going to start the game until the next episode because Retrograde Amnesia episodes are about an hour or so, and we still have to do one important thing that we do every podcast, and you know what that is?
Check in with the Realnet.
Consult the Realnet.
I'm sorry.
They're paid. They pay us. They're not paid.
Initializing Realnet.
Thank you, Realnet, for joining us tonight. We appreciate you joining. SSD Ninja says Black Onyx bonus episode when? I don't know about that, SSD Ninja. We'll see.
I feel like I read a lot about Black Onyx in the David Sheff book about Nintendo.
John Doe says AVCAB. All Virtua Cops are bastards.
Virtua Cops only fight crime in Virtuous City, so none of it is technically real.
Yeah. Shy Guy 32 says the best light gun game is Typing of the Dead.
I mean, I see where your head's at. Typing of the Dead is excellent.
Flip Minix says Captain Tsubasa was great, which reminds me, there was a Captain Tsubasa game that was released, last year? That was pretty good.
For English platforms?
Yeah. It came out. Austin Walker was big on it for a little bit. It's a soccer anime game. John Doe takes an alternate opinion and says the North American box art for Suikoden 1 is fucking amazing. I love it. Yeah, it really is something. There's a 3-headed skull Grim Reaper looking thing on here, which actually I think is an enemy in the game. But wow.
In my head, the North American box was a PlayStation 1 long box, but it came out slightly too deep into 96 for that to be a reality.
John Doe and Lil Man Dragora also make some comments about Beyond the Beyond. Have you played that? You mentioned it earlier.
No, it has a poor reputation.
Oh, does it? Okay. Shy Guy 32 corrects you, Eric, and says Kal-El was the one that said Super Nintendo game.
Oh, I thought I copied that verbatim. My mistake.
Kal-El, Keeper of the Lore. John Doe says in an alternate timeline, Beyond the Beyond would have been the PlayStation's Quest 64.
I mean, first one out the gate, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't count Tactics Ogre, then N64's got nothing.
Flip Minix says I didn't like the recent Captain Tsubasa game. The old NES ones were great, more like a soccer RPG. Basically, they were a proto Blitzball.
So math.
Yeah. Well, no, I did look this up. The Tecmo, I don't know, it was Tecmo Soccer, Tecmo World Cup, whatever it was, localized in the US. That was originally a Captain Tsubasa game. They changed all the sprites.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
The cutscenes and stuff. Anyway, thanks, Realnet, for joining us tonight. We appreciate you. We'll see you in a few minutes to record another podcast, or next week, depending on if you're in here now or another time or whatever. This episode has been a production of Retrograde Amnesia, recorded on February 15th, 2022. Thank you, Mark,
Shepard.
for those hot sounds.
You're welcome, Chris.
Find us on Twitter at RetroAmnesiaPod. If you like us, tell a friend or support us on Patreon at patreon.com/RetroAM. Early access, 2 weeks, bonus episodes, which we'll talk more about later. Miniseries, Star Ocean. What else did we do?
Parasite Eve, Terra Enigma, Radical Dreamers.
Yeah. Voting rights for our next series or miniseries. This is a democratic society, sort of. We will tell you the candidates and you tell us which one wins. And access, of course, to the Realnet on Discord so you can join us during a live sesh. Email us at podcast@retrogradeamnesia.com. Eric, until next time.
Yes, we will kill God.
Some sort of God, probably. There are some sort of elements that rule this world that we're about to explore, so I think you can consider them a God, Eric. And now you may go back to sleep. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Chris.
Oh, wait. Hey, Eric. Hold on. Eric. Oh, I hear the.
Fuck are you doing?
I hear the echo of my. It's fine. No, you don't have to. You don't have to put it down. It's just like that's what I heard. I wanted to make sure. Jason. Sorry, I'm just getting used to the new room sound. I'm very sensitive to room sounds now. After we left Jason's the other day, I had a little bit of a headache just because of all the noise and stuff. And I told Brooke that Jason needs some acoustic treatment in his basement because there's too much echo, and it was giving me a headache. Is that's?
We should keep these thoughts to ourselves. All right.
Hey, Eric.
Hey, Chris.
That's not good. Hey, Eric.
Hello, Chris.
Welcome back
to the stage of history.
To Retrograde Amnesia. It's time for season 4, Eric. So let me ask you the question. What question do you think I'm going to ask you?
Hot sounds.
No. You don't know.
I should probably say something. It's an audio medium.
Well, we'll cut the silence. It's fine.
Okay. What, Chris? We start that whole thing over?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We can say something different?
The cadence was weird.
From me or you?
Both.
Okay. Do you want me to do it again?
Yeah. Do you mean to put the Manus drops in there?
Okay.
All right.
That was the point.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was the point. Yeah. It'll
Okay.
be way less awkward then.
If I have no script, I can't do this.
Yeah, I know. That's the point of the beginning, is to be weird.
Yes, if it's your first time listening, what we're going to do is go over a brief history of Suikoden, development history, media at the time, who worked on the game, reception. Fucking start that over again. I'm like, I can't. It's fucking, I'm out of my game.
Yeah, it's weird. It's been a while.
You may have heard that Moriyama is currently working on something very Suikoden inspired.
Yes. Aiden Chronicle. Coming, I don't know.
Excuse me, sir. Aiden Chronicle 100 Heroes.
100 Heroes, yes.
Coming 2024.
I like the fact that the main character doesn't, or wheel,
That's good.
I like the way, I forget now I forgot.